can imagine.
It's crazy.
Or maybe I can't imagine.
Good. When you were ready?
We're ready to roll?
We're ready to roll.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Matej, right? This is how I say it.
Yes.
Matej. And the surname is Zak?
Mm-hmm.
Zak, Matej Zak.
Which literally means like a pupil in Czech.
A pupil.
So I'm a lifelong student. Exactly.
Matej Zak. Okay, so you're a student, Zak.
Exactly. Exactly.
Humble student of mine. Okay,
And
I'm
Bitcoin.
starting. So hello and welcome to another episode of You're the Voice. I'm very, very happy to be with you here today, filming this from Prague, the beautiful city of Prague, a place I haven't been in for 30 years, and it's just amazing. I have the honor to sit here today with Matej Zak.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
And welcome
being
to
here,
Prague.
Matej. Matej is the CEO of Trezor. I'm launching this studio at the Trezor offices in Prague. Am I the first one recording here? Yeah? Oh my God. They've built this studio so that they can start recording podcasts, which is amazing, right on time, 2 days before BTC Prague. And so I will introduce you in a second to my audience, but I just want to give my disclaimer. As you may have seen in my recent announcement on Twitter, I have the honor and pleasure to collaborate with Trezor on my podcast. If I didn't share the same set of values and mission as Trezor, I wouldn't be sitting here. So I fully trust the company, and I think that they're doing an amazing work, and that's why they're my sponsor of my podcast. So that's my disclaimer. Thanks for collaborating with me. And so Matej, I want to introduce you for those who don't know you and don't know Trezor. I know your public image is a little bit more on the low side, so maybe not many people know you.
For
and
sure.
I think it's an opportunity to introduce you to them. So Matej is the CEO of Trezor. He joined Satoshi Labs in 2019 as a product manager of a small team and successfully expanded it into a dedicated product department with over 40 people. Matej was also responsible for the development of the Trezor Suite software. I have a feature request for you.
Happy to accept those.
Enabling users to manage, buy, and exchange their crypto with utmost usability, security, and privacy. Having graduated from Berklee College of Music, he's also an active musician with a passion for adrenaline-pumping sports like paragliding. And today you came here cycling, right? So you do
correct.
some sports. And what do you play? Which instrument?
Guitar.
Guitar.
Mm-hmm. And bass
Super
guitar.
cool.
Like all kind of guitars.
Super cool. Anything you want to add to this short intro?
Just
your
like a
background?
funny note, I told my colleagues that I spent some time in this very room because as moving places, I had to live in the office for a couple months. So it was previously my studio. So I had my drum set here and guitars and stuff. So it's just like a funny side note.
So where is it now? Where did
It's
you
in my
move it?
place. I
Okay.
moved to a new place. But yeah, I think the description, or let's say the bio, as you describe it, is I think fairly accurate. So yeah, nothing that comes to mind, I guess, as a addition to it.
I like the balance between the music and the artistic side to the technological side.
Yeah, honestly, that's really nice because it kind of allows me to switch communities, I would say, and get different ideas from different people, hang out with people that are completely maybe different in some way of thinking, which is obviously extremely like inspirational for my life, and also it's a nice way I can kind of relax, after work, because obviously we are like in tech industry and Bitcoin industry, but then it's nice to just hang out with my buddies from the band and just play gigs.
Do you play in a band today?
Yes, we have like a small jazz band that we play small gigs and stuff like that.
Here in Prague?
Here in Prague, and and the next gig is actually like a wedding of our friends,
cool.
And all those kind of things. But yeah, it's fun. I love it. It's awesome.
Very cool. All right, so Matej, quite a jump from being a product manager to a CEO in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about this shift and about the founders that entrusted you with this big mission.
Yeah, so interestingly, product managers are often labeled as like mini CEOs of a product, actually.
Correct.
Why is that? Is because product management as a function in the company basically connects business, design, and technology.
Right.
So it's like overlapping those three areas, very much as a tech company would do, right? Like it's all the function that you need, and so that's I think why product managers are quite nicely positioned in terms of like their careers for like leadership positions in that sense, because it kind of makes sense because they need to understand all those areas and be more of sort of like a generalist that understand a little bit of everything.
Yep.
And so that's exactly I think why that happened in my case. Also, I was kind of always like curious, as we just I guess talked about the Czech. Like my name, what it means in English, and it's basically like pupil or lifelong student. And so I think I was kind of studying fairly fast, and I was also trying to fix a lot of things that I saw didn't work. And I think the founders kind of saw it and enjoy the fact that they have somebody in the team who's like doing all this dirty work that needs to be done. So that's that. And also as a company, we were growing and we needed to get more people in the teams. And I really enjoy the leadership aspect of the work, where basically, working with people and for the people. I really enjoy that part. So
how many people in the company?
we will be close to 200 this year. So
In Trezor?
In Trezor alone,
And,
yes.
And the whole group?
The whole group, don't quote me on that, but I think it will be probably 250, maybe 270, something like this altogether.
And you've been hiring more people lately, right?
Right. In Trezor alone, we have around 20 to 30 open positions right now, mainly for like engineering, product, and business. So,
so all you Bitcoiners, software developers, hardware developers that are listening to this, probably go to the Trezor website and check out the positions. Cool. Can they work remotely?
Yes, it is something that we are, I think that's the only good thing that COVID, I think, brought to the world. This is
the only good thing.
That's like it's more common. And for us, I could definitely tell the switch in the in the company's mentality as well. In a way, we being like more friendly with remote colleagues in terms of supporting them and even proactively looking for people outside of Czech Republic. So yeah, for sure. Of course, there are certain roles where it is not as easy, or let's say not as
not as efficient, maybe.
Yeah, not as efficient or practical. Those are mainly the hardware roles where if you need to prototype something, it's like you really need to have your hands on the thing. So really hands on and so certain roles not possible, but most of the roles. Yeah.
With great pleasure, I'd like to introduce my sponsors. They help me fulfill my mission of spreading truth, freedom, and sovereignty. You're the Voice is brought to you by Trezor, the original Bitcoin hardware wallet company pioneering the development of self-custody for crypto assets since 2013, empowering individuals with an open-source device, enabling beginners and experts to easily and securely hold their coins. I find my Trezor super easy to use and recommend it to my friends and family. Enjoy my 5% discount on Trezor products by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code FLAT. Next up is Bitcoin Nashville. If you're like me, sick of the globalists and central banks robbing you blind through excessive money printing, you need to be at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. This July, the largest Bitcoin conference in the world will shed light on monetary freedom with a glimmer of hope among a darkening reality of centralized power and control. Top speakers and companies will gather in Nashville to take part in building a new reality. I'll be there too, speaking and interviewing. Head over to my link in the notes for a 10% discount using the code BTCIL.
You see, I think I used to work in corporate tech companies for about 20 years. So I was a CMO of companies and startups. So I have experience in company cultures and how CEOs or founders would look at working remotely versus bringing the people back to the office. And I think that there's something about the old-fashioned fiat mindset of I need to see the people in front of me, but also I need to make sure that they're clocking the 9 to 5 and they're giving the hours that I'm paying them for, rather than looking at value or productivity or the production of what they're bringing. So whenever I used to work at bigger companies and I had my own team, my marketing team, my product team, I would tell them, I'm looking at your productivity. I don't care what the company policy is. And I used to have some trouble with my bosses always, but I didn't want to limit them. So as long as you deliver and you give me the value that you're supposed to give me, the company, what you're here for, then I don't care when you work and how you do it. That's all I care about. And it takes... I think it's the don't trust, verify. If you verify for me that you can do the work, do I care where you sit and how many hours you're here?
Yep.
If you're smart, brilliant, bright, and you can do it in half the time than another person, why do I need to demand you to give me 10 hours just because the policy said so? So there's this kind of openness, I think, and it's about people and how they perceive their relationships with other people, the trust and value that people need to create. And there's something in the fiat system that is so enslaving, that is so demanding, that we got used to it without questioning it. Is it needed? Is it necessary?
I mean, 100%, I subscribe to this idea, of course. And I think it's really embedded in our culture to have this accountability and the individual accountability and sort of the responsibility, but also the rights that comes with that responsibility, obviously. So, yeah, I think if we were to work with people who we would as a company, let's say, need to give some guidelines on when and how and where to work, those wouldn't be the right people anyway, right? So because you don't want people who you have to kind of babysit exactly and give some strict boundaries on what and when you can do. Actually, obviously as we are growing, we need processes and we are building processes. Of course, we have certain guidelines and rules, etc. But we try to have as loose of those as possible in terms of empowering people to work on what they want to do, right? Because and especially in innovation and product, you actually want these empowered teams who bring their own ideas and etc. And so it's very much also connected to where, if they get the idea from the beach, so why not to do it at the beach? It's perfectly fine, right? So
yeah, I love that. I think that when you stay open, it's like anarchy, right? You put the rules in place and you let the people do it. You let the free market speak, right? It's really great. So you're going to make some announcements at BTC Prague in a couple of days.
Correct.
This is probably not going to be aired until Prague, so we're fine.
I hope.
No, it won't. Don't worry, I don't have time to edit and put it out. But if you can share with us what you're going to announce and what kind of new innovations you've been working on at Trezor.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are launching basically two new products. One is a hardware product and the other one is service. Let's call it that way. The product is a new addition to our Trezor Safe series, which you might, I think, heard of Trezor Safe 3, which was a new hardware device that we introduced at the end of last year. And at BTC Prague, we will be launching something we call Trezor Safe 5. So that's the new the range, let's say, above TS3. And
from 3 to 5 we jumped?
Yes.
Cool.
There's basically some space for future additions in that line. So that's why we brainstormed the ideas of the range, etc., and came up with this idea. It's basically a new device that is mainly built for people that would interact with Bitcoin and crypto more often. So it has a touch display with a color touch display. So as opposed to TS3 is basically you can see the information better on the device. It also features, for example, secure elements. So it's something, for example, the previous Model T doesn't have. Secure elements are specialized chips, like a security chips, that protect the master secret on the device. So even if some attacker would get a hold of the device physically, it would be close to impossible for them to extract the private keys basically from the device.
Through what? Through another passphrase?
No, passphrase is not saved on the device, so that's something you would. We still recommend everybody to use because that's unhackable, literally, because it's not on the device. So even if some attacker got hold of the device,
they don't know your
they cannot get it. But of course, there's data, like physical data on the device.
Yeah.
And this secure element is now a standard in the hardware wallet market. It basically it's an additional layer of security, let's say, for the device. So that's what we added as well. The device also features haptic feedback, so basically it's like nice to play with.
Yeah, you just feel the.
Yeah, it like vibrates basically when you, for example, confirm transaction and stuff like that. There is a new firmware in it. It's really beautiful. It's we are using a lot of these like swipe gestures, so it's really nice to sort of navigate through whatever you are doing with the device, being it sending transaction, receiving transaction, doing exchanges, etc. So
cool.
It's
and
cool.
The service?
Yeah, it's something we call Trezor Expert.
Yep.
And it does exactly that. It's basically a service where you can book a session with an expert from our team, who will help you to get onboarded into self-custody, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So
nice.
Because we, like all of us basically in the company, we onboarded many friends. And like people.
Oh, I know. I'm on board a lot of people and they need help.
Like Bitcoin pumping, and you would get calls, from a lot of friends, right? Like we all know this. So that's why we came with this idea to basically do it like properly with really super highly trained experts who you can just book a session and they will walk you through our ecosystem, but also some of the broader ideas.
So is it like time limited, like a 1 hour session? Or
yes,
how it is?
Currently those are 60 minutes sessions. Yes, and from our experience, it is like sufficient enough for the, let's say, the first experience with.
And is it like a Zoom call
self-custody
that you do with them?
Yes, we are using different service, but
but
yes,
that
that's the
style.
idea.
Okay.
You basically book a session in a calendar. And,
very cool.
And we have a different studio in this building where we have basically agents who, experts.
And it's in English, I guess?
Correct.
Okay, that's great. I mean, people from all over the world will be able to use that.
Yes.
That is so nice. Thank you for doing that.
Of course, like
I'll be able to recommend this to people that come to me for help. I don't want to take that role. Some people are good at stuff and others are good at other things. Teaching people takes patience and.
Yeah, for sure. And this service actually has been launched already because it was in a silent beta. So it was like a testing. Yes, we did it but it will be only officially launched at BTC Prague. So far, it's quite amazing, but it got like full marks. So everybody who booked the session. And we send this review forms. Basically, they all gave it like 10 out of 10, which is super nice. So we are quite happy about that.
And you gotta get your Trezor before you book a service, right?
Yeah, you can actually do both. You can, if you already bought it, for example, through like a trusted reseller, like such as Amazon or something. You can book the session as a solo kind of product.
Okay.
But also you can buy it, let's say, as a bundle with Trezor and the session as well.
Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm very glad to hear about the service, especially, but also at the wallet. Okay, given the push for CBDCs, do you see something similar to an Executive Order 6102 coming back in the Bitcoin version? Like that they're going to try and seize or confiscate personal custody or self-custody of Bitcoin? And what will be the meaning in your eyes?
I mean, it's hard to predict the future, of course. But that being said, of course, there are certain worries about the regulation closing in on self-custody, right? Like non-KYC self-custody
Yes.
products and services, let's say. So, of course, there are some worries about this. Do I think that's right? Of course not. Like, I think it's actually the human right to be able to, keep Bitcoin in self-custody without the need to, KYCing it or anything like that. So I don't know where the future is going to get. It's not the future, of course, I like, but we will see.
Yeah.
I guess we will have to wait for, whatever happens.
Yeah, and we definitely are seeing the attack on privacy-related services and products in the Bitcoin space lately with Samurai and other developments. Not that I was surprised, but I was definitely, disappointed to see what happened, and it's another development in the game, I think, where the institution is trying to fight Bitcoin in the only way that is possible, because technologically they can't do much. So they try to cover all their bases around it with laws and regulations and.
Yeah, but also, like, I think it's kind of funny that, Wall Street and, I don't know, SEC, I guess, those guys have been labeling Bitcoin and crypto as, drug money and weapons money and whatnot for the, let's say, 15 years or maybe later because they didn't notice Bitcoin from the beginning. But now you have the ETFs, right, coming even to crypto, not just Bitcoin. And so I guess what is it, like 2 trillion market capitalization and 500 million users kind of change their mind, so it's at the end the business as well, right? Very obviously for them, so because they, I guess, saw it as some kind of competition.
Their tool, the fiat system, is so flawed that it's inevitable for them to come into the Bitcoin game through ETFs, because they have to keep pumping the fiat system, and the ETF is another method for them. So they're helping Bitcoin. I don't know how much the ETF is a help for the Bitcoin industry, but in a way it is, just by virtue of introducing people to this asset. And they have to do it because they have to be open to any shape and form of growth of the fiat economy.
Yeah, correct.
The debt economy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Michael Saylor had a quite nice talk on this in Madeira. That he basically says, like, Bitcoin is for everyone, and then he explains everyone, being families, governments, funds, businesses, corporate, nations, basically. So I think it's cool, but of course we as a company are on the side of. It's still peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So if you can hold it yourself, why not to hold it yourself, right? Like,
sure.
And we are making products that are extremely easy to use. You can use them every day. So why not use those as opposed to holding like a legal contract to, like, an obligation to that somebody owes you Bitcoin, but they don't even have it themselves. They keep it on an exchange. Exchanges get hacked all the time. Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, as Satoshi invented it, it's to be held by individuals, and it can be done in an easy way. So why not to, right?
So a lot of my audience has been red-pilled during COVID, and I am, in a way, orange-pilling them through my podcast with people like you and others. And so that is a good bridge transition, I think, for you to say a few words about the key difference between holding an ETF for those of my audience that are taking their first steps in Bitcoin, but they're too afraid, so they're holding an ETF, to then do the jump to a self-custody. How can you explain to them that bridge?
Right. Okay, so I'm not a financial expert, so I hope I don't make any mistakes, but the way I understand, there's the ETF is basically a fund, and I think there are 2 types currently, which is like a spot BTF, a fund that actually holds the Bitcoin, and then the futures ETFs that don't even hold the Bitcoin. It's basically like an option or contract, like a legal obligation, let's say. And you can buy it through these companies, through these funds, and it's exactly this. It's basically like a contract that they hold your Bitcoin and they track the price over time. The problem with this specifically, I suppose what you can do in self-custody is you will pay fees for this. You're not going to be holding just like the Bitcoin and let's say speculating on the price or the price movement over time. But also these ETFs funds will eat some of those gains because that's their business.
Model.
Yeah, that's the model. That's their business. As opposed to you can start self-custody, ideally in a hardware wallet, because that's the safest way to do it, to keep the private keys offline. And there are no recurring costs, and nobody knows about it. You don't have to connect your KYC data, like your identity to this. It's basically the way it should be, right? Like nobody should care about like how much money you have or stuff like that. So I would say that's like those two biggest benefits.
And I heard you giving a very surprising statistic, which I wasn't aware of. You said that there are roughly 450 million people holding cryptocurrencies today, and out of which between 8 to 10 million are holding it in hardware wallets.
Correct.
This is nothing. This is like,
yeah, it is.
It's crazy.
It is, and we have still a lot of work to do, I guess.
So people don't really get what self-custody in a hardware wallet means.
I think
to me,
so.
it's like so obvious.
Yeah. I think there might be like a leap from the past where maybe the hardware. Just my assumption as a, let's say, product manager is that hardware wallets started as sort of geeky products, by built by geeks, used by geeks, and used by tech people who really understood what's going on. And I think now we are moving, us and honestly our competitors as well, are moving to a space where we are trying to make it extremely user-friendly.
Right.
The onboarding is very seamless, etc. And I think we are doing a really good job at that. And Trezor Safe 5 and Trezor Expert are, kind of the testimony to that. But we are at the beginning of this bigger adoption of hardware wallets. That's what I hope.
I think there are two things here. One is maybe the trust thing, that people don't trust themselves to manage their own assets and money. And we've been so accustomed to giving other people our power, giving other institutions our power. And in that as well, we're giving the bank, we're giving the government, the state, the power to hold what's ours without thinking about the implications of it and the property rights behind it. And I think that once you start taking sovereignty over your life, it's like a natural course that you would want to hold your own assets, including your own Bitcoin. So that's like one thing. And the other thing is, like you said, the usability and how user-friendly it is. I think that people just have to start thinking about hardware wallets as the next USB key. You have a disk on key, you have a USB key, and you have a hardware wallet. Like one is for your data and information, and one is for your money. But it's the same kind of gadget. You just need it with you whenever you're transacting significant amounts of money and not your Lightning wallet. So I think there's definitely a need in more education and like a mindset shift for people to understand.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think all of us, I guess, had this like aha moment where maybe it's not normal to keep your assets with an institutions ripping you off and
making your life harder and harder every day.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe our banks didn't go out of business, maybe they didn't go bankrupt, but like 2008, and how many financial crises were there, like a debt crisis because the institutions didn't have the money that they were claiming they had, right? So and the same thing, honestly, in crypto as well. Like, so exchanges, going out of business all the time. Like, we will see in the launch presentation that I have this statistic there that is like $15 billion dollars worth of Bitcoin got like hacked or evaporated through scams and in 2022 alone. So just one.
Wow.
Yeah, $15 billion dollars. And of course there is a lot of and again it's a statistic, but then there are a lot of people for which it wasn't a statistic, right? Like it was their savings, and those are the like Celsius, FTX, and all these. So yeah, so
Crazy.
So if you can keep those coins yourself, why would you not do it? Basically.
I know. Okay. Why is the company Bitcoin-centric and less crypto-centric? What is the philosophy behind it? And is it expected to change in terms of adopting the wallet to support other currencies? I mean, I know that the strategy of introducing other currencies got you some public criticism as well. So
Yeah.
what's your philosophy?
Honestly, I
about
actually like the way you ask the question, because usually it's like, when the next coin, etc. So I
that?
like
Yeah,
the
for
way.
me it's the other way
No,
around.
yeah, I like the way you position it. So I think we are Bitcoiners for sure. Like the founders are Bitcoiners. Honestly, I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm mostly in Bitcoin, and I think we all sense the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, right? Like the better money, proof of
The
work,
only money.
exactly, and then crypto. But that being said, also, like, this free market maximalism is, I think, what, at least in my opinion, we should be doing as a company. So if our products can support other use cases by not deriving from the mission. So basically,
Okay.
the core of the product, what it does, it's keeping your private keys securely. If you can do for Bitcoin, but for other cryptocurrencies as well, why not, right? If there is a demand for it. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying we should, if somebody asks for it, we should do it. I think there's this famous quote from Henry Ford. If people ask him what they wanted, they would want it faster horses, not a car. So of course, our approach is definitely more conservative in a way that we don't just like support whatever next, sorry to say, bullshit out there.
What's the next trend?
Yeah, because it's not good business, because like you need to invest some money into developing it and supporting it, etc. Maybe it dies out the next month or whatever. So it's not practical, but it's even philosophical. It's probably not right, because you are not even sure whether it's not some kind of almost like a scammy project or something. So you want to support only, I would say, projects that are that have some traction and that have been on the market for a while. But yeah, like free market maximalism. So I think if there is a demand for it and we can do it within the means of our mission, then we should do it. Because also, by the way, by supporting more of these networks, you can lure, let's say, more people in self-custody, right?
Yeah.
And get that number of those.
The 8 to 10 million.
Yeah, like basically 2% for all crypto users to use self-custody of a hardware wallet, right? And by doing that, just also very practically, we can reinvest those earnings into innovation again. So we can do also better stuff for Bitcoin and for our products, right? So that can be more usable, bigger reach, etc. So I think I would say it's a sane strategy.
And it doesn't defocus you from your mission?
I don't think so because the way we are structured as an organization, because we have a solely, we have dedicated Bitcoin teams, our R&D teams that are really the maxis that know everything about it and are extremely passionate about it. But then also we have teams that are working on, let's say, crypto, right? Crypto projects. And I think those should not be competitive within the organization. But I will say it also as maybe a personally, maybe we know the difference, you and me and everybody in the company, between Bitcoin and crypto. And I think it's quite clear where our focus is and want to be, right? So I will say that as well.
Good. We talked about the institutional battle against private ownership. Is Trezor doing something to operate like a lobby or a consortium or something to battle this in any way? Like the push in both Europe and the US to fight private ownership is quite significant now. And, since you are one of the leading companies in this space, are you operating on those levels as well?
I would say not very proactively, but we have a local union or association, something like this, which we have supported in the past, that is doing exactly that. So basically supporting Bitcoin and crypto I think they mainly educate the government, if I understand it correctly. So they basically do this kind of lobbying in a way of educating what even is Bitcoin and why it's good. Again, it's good for everybody.
Here locally in the Czech Republic?
Yeah, locally. but I think, if I'm not mistaken, we do it at the Satoshi Labs level. So that's kind of the mother company of the companies, including Trezor and the other three. So yeah, we have some activities like this, but not like a massive one that we would go to US and etc.
Got it. It's quite encouraging to see some politicians recently talking in favor of personal custody and self-custody. I mean, in the US, it's crazy.
It is
I
crazy.
never thought it would hit like mainstream politicians and media and whatever, and it does.
Yeah, it is crazy. But so I'm wondering where is this going to lead to?
This
but
is all
also,
politics, right? It's
but
like right before the elections.
Yeah, exactly. But I wanted to say exactly this. But
Go ahead.
I'm not that optimistic or anything, because it's the politics anyway. So if 1 year something changes, then they will be saying something else. So
Yeah. You're taking them with a grain
keep my
of
hopes
salt.
down. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I get you. I'm the same. At the same time, what it's doing to public perception is really great. Like,
Yeah,
just
that's
the
true.
fact
That's
that
true.
they're saying these words in mainstream media or mainstream politics, people listen to them and they don't know what it is. Like, what is self-custody? What do you
Right.
mean I'm going to
Right.
help you keep your Bitcoin? Like Trump is saying, I'm going to help you keep your custody over
that's
Bitcoin.
crazy.
And people listen to him, it's like, this is Chinese for me. What does he mean? So that's already good, right? For market education.
Yeah, I guess it is. I don't know if it can backfire in some way. Not sure. Because I would say, like, maybe as an example, the ETFs, right? So we discussed, and I agree, it's a good marketing for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Because we are still, I think we are still early. Well, I don't know. Maybe it does. It leads to some better future. I don't know. It's just like I'm always careful when I hear it from politicians.
Well, it's interesting to take the point of view that Samson Mao had on it when I had a discussion, an episode with him on the podcast, and he was looking at ETFs as the funnel. He's like, this is the top of the funnel.
Yeah,
They come in through there. It's up to us to now try and convert them to the next level of the funnel. And definitely ETFs is not the way you should be holding Bitcoin. But if you put your foot in the door through, great. Now let's open the door.
I agree. It's but again, like you will see in the launch presentation, I would still like to argue, like, if you can get into self-custody, because
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Get through the door, grab yourself a hardware wallet, and come sit on the couch with us.
Yeah, sure.
Otherwise, you can go have dinner with BlackRock. This is an interesting one. What were the most difficult moments of the company, given that it experienced 3 bear markets? Now, I know that you haven't been with the company for that long, but I'm sure you know the history and going through those waves.
I think the one I experienced quite, firsthand was this.
And for those who don't know what a bear market means, it means when the market is in decline, right?
Thanks. And so I experienced a couple interesting things. Maybe I'll start when I joined the company. I think I started like in May or something like this, and at the end of the year, we accrued $1 million loss. That was the operating profit was basically a loss of $1 million US dollars, plus or minus. I think if I remember correctly, in 2022. The company made 50 million in revenue, right? Something like this. It's a huge kind of jump from. You can see what happens like in the market, right? So our sales are tied to Bitcoin price. So whenever Bitcoin is pumping, it's extremely correlated together. Yeah. There are some events on the market like banks going down or competition messing up or something where our sales will get some boost as well, but mainly it's really Bitcoin. It's what it does for us. And I think the kind of toughest in our specific case is the hardware itself. There's this sentence: "Hardware is hard," and it's true, because it's hard to build, it's hard to develop, because it takes years to develop even simple products, and
the costs are
and the cost
higher.
and you need to have enough stock to be able to support those bullish years, right? So So you need to actually invest massive amounts of cash into your stock.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's basically cash flow heavy, let's say, or cash
Yes.
flow difficult, let's say. And I think where this hit us the most was when there was this chip shortage crisis globally. So basically, big companies didn't have the silicon, and basically we didn't have the chips. So that was problematic because we simply couldn't sell because we didn't have the devices.
2021.
I think I think it was 2022, if I'm not mistaken.
And how is it now?
Luckily, it got like better. So we are fine now, and the lead time is basically, when you order some material and you wait for it, got to normal, which I think could be anywhere from weeks to up to a half a year, depending on what component we are talking. But back then, those lead times were, for example, 2 years for the chips, right? The MCU, that is like the main thing in the device. So so that was tough because then you couldn't sell, then you don't have the cash, then you cannot build the stock because you don't have the cash, and then you don't have the stock, so you don't sell. It's like a vicious circle, and so that was not good. But it's just interesting, like like experience-wise, and I guess my life experience-wise, but everything can go wrong in a business. And if you're in a software, of course, it has some advantages, disadvantages, but you definitely don't bear this hardware component to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. I used to work in a drone company.
Oh, okay.
We developed drones and big docking stations. A hardware company that recruited more than $120 million in VC funding. It was a big promise to the market. And it was such a difficult business. It was really, really difficult. So I know what you mean. People don't understand what it means to run a hardware business, a hardware tech business.
And was it because of the competition, or why was it?
I think it was time to market, but also spread to too many global markets too early on.
Right.
This is massive hardware with big investment when you are opening a new market. Yeah. So the company was spread between Australia as its first market in mining for mining companies, and the United States, which are two very distant markets that you had to have like two separate operations in each one of them in order to succeed. And it was a killer for the company, I think. Too early on. It was only like a 3-4-year-old company when it did that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I had some startup experiences before joining Trezor, and honestly, we were like small teams, for example, in this one's experience, and we had some investment as well, and it was the toughest years of my life. It's like
stressful.
It's stressful. Like taking external cash is definitely stressful, but it's kind of nice specifically for us. We have never taken external capital.
Yeah. So are you bootstrapped? Are you working from your own revenues, or?
Yes, it's everything's bootstrapped. So I'm not saying it might change in the future. Of course, I don't know if we need to scale more. It might happen, but so far it's amazing because we can really live with our own decisions, right? So you don't kind of bear this extra responsibility for the investors, and it allows us to make, I would say, the right decisions, right? Like the ones that are really strictly aligned with our mission, and not some business crazy, new something ventures, like this kind of defocus. So.
Yeah. You're a private company, so I don't know if you want to reveal that, but do you hold any of your reserves in Bitcoin?
We do have some reserves like that, yeah. Because you can
make
also,
sense, right?
Because you can
buy in Bitcoin.
Exactly, you can buy our devices in Bitcoin, so that's why,
Right. I didn't think about that. Okay, very good. Cool, because, I would love to see this trend increasing of companies holding their reserves in Bitcoin. That would make a difference, just like Sailor was saying in Madeira, as you referenced.
I think quite nicely or famously, Peter McCormack got this investment from the Winkles brothers. By butchering the names, I'm sorry. But I think he said that he will keep the Bitcoin for
the treasury or the savings.
Exactly.
Of the company. It's amazing. And it's the Bitcoin mindset of saving and thinking about the future. I love that. I normally end the episode on like a message of hope, and we didn't get too much in this conversation to the global events that are happening around the world, or the different trends and forces that are impacting where the world's going. But there's definitely a push towards a more controlled, a more censored way of living, especially in Western democracies. And, you coming from a country that have gone through communism and a lot of hardship, how do you see what's happening in the Western world with your perspective, with your eyes? I know that we cannot predict the future, but where do you think this is going, this trend towards more authoritarian regimes?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of Bitcoin-related businesses in Czech Republic, interestingly. BTC Prague considered one of the biggest Bitcoin conferences in the world now. There's us, there is Brains, there is Confirmo, there's exchanges. There are basically businesses that are in doing very well in Bitcoin, and we're thinking why that is, right? Like, how's that possible? Like a small nation in the middle of nowhere. Maybe I'm too harsh on our nation, but like
how many
a
people
small
are
nation.
in the Czech Republic?
10 million people.
10 million.
Yeah, and we discussed this a couple of times with our colleagues, and yeah, we think it's probably the communism, because there was like a dictatorship almost in certain years. There was, definitely like super strong oppression, from the regime, and like the human rights were not given to the people, like even like my grandparents, and so we all know it. So we are sort of, I would say, the founders are one of the first generations that came into the world where they can operate freely, they can start businesses, and they can do some good. And I think it's just this kind of mentality to not play along with the system, right? So I think that's why these companies started to do quite well here, because there was a lot of people that were like, F the system, right? Like in a certain way. And I don't mean in some bad way or illegal way, but just like, why play with rules that don't make sense, like the rules that restrict my human rights, basically. So I think that's just a kind of interesting phenomenon. And yeah, we just hope that there will be more companies, businesses, entrepreneurs, startups that would do exactly that as well, that will create products and services and innovate on Bitcoin, that more people will basically live with it and will follow its kind of mission and philosophy. And I don't think the governments, I don't know, I'm not an expert on the topic, but I just like seeing the history, I don't think the government will do anything else differently in the future. It will always be the same. They will always try to, push against those things because they want to be in control. So yeah, but I think there's always an opportunity for companies such as Trezor to build, products and services that can push back, let's say.
Push back and create a new reality.
Yep.
What you guys are doing is helping, I call it creating the orange path. You have the dark path and the orange path. That's amazing. And thank you so much for having this conversation with me, for speaking openly, for hosting me here. And good luck at the conference. You're giving an opening speech, right?
Yes, but today I have some practice session internally, so that's equally nerve-wracking. So
I know. I'm also giving a presentation, and I'm wrecked by that. It's 20 minutes that is consuming like 2 weeks before the conference. Exactly. It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I'm not a huge public speaker aficionado, but but it needs to be done. So
it's part of the role.
Exactly.
Well, good luck.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
I'll be there to watch your talk, and I'll also put a link in the show notes to your speech.
Awesome.
And also I'll put a link to the new Trezor service and products, which will probably be live by the time we upload this episode, so you can enjoy that. And with my discount, you can enjoy 5% discount on Trezor website with using my code Efrat. So So give it a go, and definitely take the self-custody path if you haven't yet, and your keys and your coins are on some exchange. You have to move them to a hardware wallet. So, yeah. Matej, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate it as well.